Hi, I'm Liz Toombs, your host for Sorority Chat, the podcast about all things Greek housing, decorating, and beyond. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I hope that you enjoy what you're hearing on each episode from me and the guests on the show. And if you are, please share with a friend and leave us a review. Happy listening. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have joining me Miss Shelley Pulliam from Edmond, Oklahoma, right, Shelley?
That is correct. Good morning.
Okay. That was testing my memory there. So for those who are not familiar with Shelley, we have known each other for a few years now. We had the pleasure of working on a house renovation and addition together at Oklahoma State University. And at the time, Shelley was serving as the House Corp Board President for the Gamma Phi Beta chapter there. Shelley, do you want to talk a little bit about how you got involved and your affiliation with the chapter in Oklahoma State?
Absolutely. You know, after graduating from college, I moved to California. And so I really had nothing to do as an alumni with Gamma Phi Beta. And so we had a big 50th reunion at the house that I participated in and helped plan. And afterwards, I thought, I love this. I need to get more involved. And so I thought a house corporation board would be a great way to do that. Because really, when I was in college, the house had such an impact on me. I went to college as a shy girl. Mm-hmm. And actually, my sister and mother made me go through recruitment because they thought I'd just sit in my dorm room and not talk to people. And so I went through recruitment and pledged Gamma Phi and loved it. It just taught me how to be a leader, brought me out of my shell. And so part of that was I wanted to give back. Mm-hmm. I wanted to give back to something that had changed my life, as well as I wanted these collegiate girls to have such a great experience that I had. And so that's how I started serving. And then somehow I became president, and here we go.
So did you begin serving on the board while you were still living in California, or did you?
No, I had moved back. Okay. Right. I had moved back from California, was living here in Oklahoma, was a teacher, and then went back to the house for that 50th reunion and got plugged back in.
Okay. All right. Because I do know there are a number of alumni that do serve from out of state and in different chapters. And I know that adds a level of complexity to it. So I didn't know if you
that would be a little difficult. It's easier to be near the house.
That is true. So you said your mom and your sister drug you into recruitment. So are both of them Gamma Phi Betas as well?
No, my sister she was actually a senior in the house when I went through recruitment. She was a Gamma Phi at Oklahoma State. My mom was not, but just saw how much my sister enjoyed it and knew that I would just hang out in my dorm room and said, no, you need to go that route. Your sister did. And so that's what I did. And I survived recruitment as a shy girl and love it now.
It's hard to imagine you as a shy person because you are just so jovial and welcoming. And so I've never kind of felt from you that you would stand against the wall. And I think that shows in your day job as well, because this is not the only thing that you do. This is just a volunteer.
Correct.
You run Arise Single Moms Ministry. You want to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like for you?
Sure. I serve as executive director currently, but am co-founder of Arise Single Moms, and we do outreach and programming for single moms. Mm-hmm. And so I run this whole nonprofit with staff, and which is a very demanding job, a lot of hours. And so it's been kind of, it's something you can do. You can serve on the House Corporation Board and have a full-time job too. But it gets dicey sometimes.
Yeah.
Things are going on.
It can. So for those people that might be listening who are thinking, well, I'd love to get involved. I would love to give back, but I just don't have the time to do it. You've talked about your job is demanding. What are some words of advice that you would give someone considering that, or how would you encourage them to get involved despite them being concerned about the time commitment?
Absolutely. You know, it really is not that big of a time commitment if you have a good board that are serving along with you. We meet every other month on a Sunday afternoon for a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we're involved in helping with bid day recruitment. Summer, we do a little bit of cleaning out of the house, closets, that sort of thing. But it doesn't require a whole lot of time, but it's so rewarding. So if you have, maybe every other month available to come to a meeting, or you can also serve as an advisor, with the chapter. But I think it's a great thing for whether you have a demanding job or whether you have no job, because it's just so rewarding. And so don't worry about the time commitment because there's others serving with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's many hands make light work situation.
Yes.
I say.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
I have the benefit of knowing most of the folks that are on the board with you. I got to know you all very well during our couple of years working on that renovation at the house, and you have a very tight knit bond. Were all of you all from the same pledge class? Did you come from different years? What does that makeup look like?
Sure, we're all from different years. There are a few of us that overlapped in the house. I was a senior when one of them was a freshman, but we are from different years, and it is a bond. And I think part of that is when we joined the board, there were some changes that needed to be made, and we said, none of us are quitting. We're all going to be together until we make it through this, which part of it was a renovation project. And so that kind of bonded us together. And just the more we met and being at bid day and seeing all the great things and working with the girls, that made the bond. And we just really enjoy each other. So when it comes time to rotate off, we are going to miss each other. And that's a great thing about a sorority and being an alumni is that it doesn't matter what year you're from, what chapter you're from, you're bound together, and you can have a connection and a bond that you can develop. And so I recommend, even if you don't know anybody, join the House Corporation Board because you'll get to know them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think it's interesting that as we get older in our adult life, like age no longer really matters. It's such a thing when we're younger and we're going through school and you have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, all of that age gap seems so different. And then when you're older, it's like it just disappears.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Some of my favorite people that, I hang out with sometimes are in their 20s and 30s just because they're great women. And we have that in common.
Yes. So you talked about needing some changes at the house. The board decided to tackle some things. One of those was obviously the renovation, the structure, the look of the facility. So if somebody on a House Corp board is listening and is considering going through that process at their house, will you walk them through what your experience was like, just what the different steps were for you guys?
Oh, absolutely. It was certainly something we needed to do. I think that's one of the difficult things of being on a House Corporation board is keeping the house updated and keeping the house relevant and keeping the house, because you're competing against the other sororities. And so we certainly knew that. We had a chapter that they couldn't all meet for formal dinner because we had outgrown it. They didn't have enough study space. We didn't have rooms. And so we knew we had to do it. And so the first step was just evaluating, doing a fundraising survey. Could we fundraise enough money to do it? And so that was our first step, was just doing an analysis, which we did, and how much we could raise and then how much we would need to borrow. And then the second step was looking at, are we going to try to keep what we have and just renovate it? Or are we going to level and build new? And one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to keep some of the historical integrity. We wanted alums coming back and feeling like it was still their house, but we wanted it modern enough for the new girls. And we did that. We decided to keep, and we decided to add on and just kind of gut some of the inside and change it. And so that we kept that historical integrity. And we're so glad we did. So glad. And so then, of course, you had to embark on the fundraising. And one of the things I will honestly say, you think people will give, they don't necessarily give. They may not have the same heart you have for it, but we're very, very generous. We raised almost $1 million, and which is very good for sororities. Fraternities raise a lot more than sororities do. And then, of course, you had to go through the process of finding an architect, one that knows Greek housing. Greek housing is a little bit different in building than regular housing and commercial. And then, of course, looking at interviewing construction companies and coming together with all of them. I did put together a committee to help me, a construction committee, and they were instrumental, but it took longer than we thought. We ended up postponing it for a year. And so what happens is life happens. And so some of them had to move on. And so a lot of it fell in my lap, which I did not realize would happen. So that's my advice, is get a really strong committee that's going to be with you for the long haul till the very end of the project. And of course, you have to look at all of those things, from construction company to architect to designer, which is how we found you. You had been recommended to us and came on board. And there's so many different steps to it. And that's kind of how we got involved. And of course, I just had no idea how hands-on you have to be. So in that respect, it was time consuming because you need to monitor it. You've got to be on site looking to make sure, because nobody knows your house the way you do. Even though an architect designs it and a construction company is building it, you know whether that is really going to work for your girls. And we had to change a few things as we went on. So find a great committee is my recommendation.
Yes, that's good advice, because you need a group to tackle
Yes.
this. And
Yes.
your group, you could tell it was a labor of love. You know, it was a lot of work, but you all were happy to be there and happy to oversee it and excited to go through the steps. You know, even if there were hiccups along the way. And so I commend you
Yes.
guys for that.
And there are hiccups. There is no perfect construction project. No perfect. And that's what I still have to tell myself when I go to the house and I walk around. It's like, it's okay, Shelley. There's no perfect construction project.
Yep, you're exactly right. And that has never been more true than today, dealing with still some just aftershocks from COVID and the way the market is and prices and supply chain.
Absolutely.
It's just constantly something these days. How long did it take you all from start to finish? So when you embarked on that study to determine how to fundraise until the project was complete, what was that timeline? Because I imagine it was really a long time once you added all that in.
Yes, it was actually about 4 years.
Okay.
When we had our first initial meeting to bring that committee together to talk about it, to have the board, start saying, yes, we want to go this direction, to doing all the interviews and everything. The actual construction was a year, but all the build up and fundraising and everything was the 3 years prior.
Yeah, I know. It's like you got to get all ramped up for that you think you're going in to do construction, and then it's all the prep work beforehand that really takes up all the time.
Exactly. And we were actually going to begin a year earlier, but the budget came back higher than what we had planned. So we had to make some adjustments in our plans to bring it back to what we could afford. And so that postponed us a year till we broke ground.
But that's great that you were still able to achieve it. Sometimes that's just a minor setback, even though it's a disappointment, and you can overcome it and then move on.
Absolutely. And we also learned that no matter what numbers you get and what you budget, you need to always add $1 million.
Yes, right. I
know. You think you won't use your contingency, you run into things. You think things happen, and it just costs more than you think it will.
Yep, you're exactly right. I see that in all types of projects, residential, this type of work, all of it. There's always more money to spend than you think there will be.
That's true.
Now, on that campus, it seems like a number of houses have been redone or rebuilt. Where were you guys kind of in the process of, were you on the early end of things or the latter end? And was that a factor in doing the construction? Was it a competitive advantage, or were you looking at being competitive when you were considering this?
Sure. We actually were the first that broke ground, but there was another sorority that did it at the same time we did. But all the others are following after us. And there was a couple of fraternities that were before us, but as far as sororities, we were the first, along with Alpha Delta Pi. And since then, we have Chi O that's going, and Pi Phi is getting ready to, and different things. And so it wasn't a decision for us as to say we want to be the first. It was just a decision based on it's time, because our house is affecting recruitment. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Well, y'all are trendsetters.
Yes, we are. And so most of them, we are the only one who has kept our historical integrity. All of them have leveled and built new.
Okay. Well, it's harder to keep that historical integrity and to retrofit some things as opposed to starting from scratch. So I understand, why some of these others may make that decision.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It is difficult. We still are having difficulty with all these roof lines met at one point. So it is harder.
Oh, so you served as House Corp president for 10 years, which is a really long time, I will add. What other roles have you had, or do you currently have on the board?
Perfect. And actually, yes, 10 is long. You don't usually supposed to serve that long, but they just voted when I was president to do the construction project, and they wanted me to stay as president until the project was done. Sure. So that's what added a little bit longer to my term. But I actually came on the board and took over the House Management Committee over all the repairs and maintenance, which is what the construction project has fallen under that. And I've had to stay in that role because we had some construction stuff still that happened after it. And And of course, for those that don't know, was it 6 months after we had our construction project, we had a burst pipe and our house flooded. And so we had to redo so much of it. And so that was a part of it. So currently I still am house maintenance and I am secretary and am looking to train people to take over those roles for me.
Yes. My heart hurt for you all when I got the call that that flood had happened, because I just couldn't believe something that major so soon after construction.
Oh, we couldn't believe how fast water pours all from the second floor all the way to the basement. We had no idea. And the police and fire department was there within, 10 minutes to get everything shut off, but it still just flowed everywhere.
Yeah, water is incredibly damaging, unfortunately.
Yes.
So if somebody would be considering the role of secretary or treasurer or anything like that, what are some good characteristics of those folks? Or, somebody may feel like they're not qualified for it, but what would you tell them that would, encourage them to get involved in a role like that?
Sure. I mean, to me, the number one thing is this, that you're reliable and dependable.
Yeah.
You're going to follow through with what you say you're going to do. And you don't have to have any special degree. You don't have to, just that you are willing, you're a hard worker, you're willing to show up and you're willing to do the work. And that's part of it. Just as secretary, you're at the meetings, you take the minutes and you're able to type those minutes up and get them out, in a timely manner. And treasurer, we actually hire an accountant that does all of our bookkeeping and stuff. So all our accountant does is authorize payments and sets the budget and make sure everything's going okay. So it's not like you have to be a CPA, to do treasure. It's just that you're willing to give your time and your talent,
Yeah, that's really it in every role, isn't it? You're willing to give your time and your talent and be involved again.
Yeah, just willing to serve and be dependable and reliable and put forth the effort and be a hard worker.
Yes. Now, I know Gamma Phi Beta has a facilities management corporation, and you all have chosen to stay locally run, and you have the benefit, obviously, of having a great group of alums that are willing to come and serve. But has there been any certain driver as to why you all have wanted to just stay run by your alumni? Or, just talk a little bit about that, I guess, because every organization handles that a little bit differently, and I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely. When we came on, that core group that we talked about, when we came on the board, there was a local alum that lived in Stillwater who ran everything. She was phenomenal and she ran everything, but she was getting older. And that's where we came on and said, we have to bind together and we have to figure out what all she knows is in her head. And at that point, we started realizing we all live out of town. There was not any other local in Stillwater alums who were going to be involved. We can't be there. And also it's a multi-million-dollar property. We don't know how long a furnace lasts, or we don't know how long this lasts. So we knew we had a local group who could be hands-on, but we also needed a management company who knew all of that. So we do have CSL Management Company who handles our management. And we were having trouble too at that time with having reliable house moms. And so we needed them really to be able to step in and handle those repairs. But now we have a great house director, but she's still it's so great. If something's going wrong, she just sends it to them. They send out the repair. We talk about it and okay it. But I love having the two working together. Yeah. That I am not reliable for going up to Stillwater and meeting with the workmen and figuring out, yes, it's time to replace the furnace, that we have this great management company that can say, yeah, it's time. And that's a great bid. They get the bids and they say, yes, that's a good bid, because these are multi-million-dollar properties and we're working women out of town and we needed that guidance.
Yeah, I think you're right. Assembling a good team makes all the difference so that it doesn't just fall on one person or just a couple of people. You have the experts involved.
Absolutely. And when the experts come back and say, hey, it's time to do this, then we can go to that group and say, do we want to do this now, or do we want to wait till Christmas or next year? And so it's really a great thing to have both.
Yes, it is. Well, Shelley, what would you say is the biggest challenge for a house core board running a house, or as an individual serving on the board?
Sure. I think as the biggest challenge as House Corporation Board is, first and foremost, the house itself, is maintaining the house, keeping it up to date. It's a continual process. You did such a phenomenal job, which, by the way, I like the little room behind you, which is our study room.
Yes, it's your study room. It's one of my favorites.
Yes, that Liz designed. Is even though we worked with you just a couple of years ago, well, already the carpet in the downstairs TV lounge is probably next year for us to replace that. It's a continual upgrade and trying to maintain it with these collegiates. I think the second thing is just because it's not the same culture in girls that we had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Society has changed. And with what we went through with COVID and everything, we have an uptick of emotional and anxiety and different things that we're dealing with even where people are talking about the emotional support animals. All these things that are affecting the house and filling the house is a challenge just because it's a different culture. But I see this year a change that I think we're finally coming back from COVID, finally coming back from all of that, which we're super excited about. But it's working with a different group of girls every year. And it's maintaining that house, that, paying the bills and making sure we have enough money and the repairs are done. It's just a continual process.
Yes, yes. Well, then on the flip side, what is your favorite part about being on a House Corp board?
Oh, absolutely. Really, it's working with the collegians. I love young people. I'm a former teacher, middle school teacher. And so I love young people and I love working with them and interacting with them. This Saturday's bid day. It's our favorite thing to go and welcome all the new sisters and working with all them. And I really do enjoy working with the other House Corporation board members.
Oh, that's good. That the people connection, I guess, is your driver.
Yeah.
Well, Shelley, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us your House Corp board experience. It's always great to see you and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me because, you're always one of our faves.
Oh, thank you so much.